Well, hello, folks. This week you're in for an absolute treat. I got to interview the incredible Pierre-Camille from Hospitable. He is the founder, he is a CEO. He's created an amazing company with over 60 staff from scratch. He started roughly around about 10 years ago, a bit under 10 years. They're all over the world and they're developing some fantastic software, some fantastic tools. Now, folks, you want to tune in because some of these insights are going to blow your mind. So make sure you watch through to the end. Make sure that you give us a like and a subscribe. It makes all the difference to us. And let's get straight into it. Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Accommodation Show. This week, you're in for an absolute treat because I have the founder and the CEO of Hospitable, Mr. Pierre-Camille or Pierre PC on the show. Welcome to the show, Pierre. How are you?
Thank you, Bart, for having me. I'm great. How are you doing, Bart?
I'm really good. I've been looking forward to this episode because we haven't done much interacting yet in person, right? We haven't done much speaking. We've encountered each other along our journeys. And my experience of you is through the company that you built. So, one, the technology, and then two, the team that you've hired. And that's been really fascinating, is actually to get to know you better, but not through you, through your team. So it is a pleasure to actually have you on here and to get the opportunity to pick your brain, pick through, I think, you, but also Hospitable and what it took for you to get to where you are on your journey. But what I'd love you to do to kick us off, rather than me say, can you give everyone a bit of an introduction as to kind of what Hospitable is, what you do there, and then the last question on that is why?
Oh, that's why. Yeah, thank you for saying that about the team. I'm the kind of CEO that basically doesn't really want to be at the forefront. So the fact that you know the team first, and that must mean I must be doing my job just right. Yeah, so Hospitable, if you've been in the industry for quite a bit of time, you may have heard about us when we were still named Smart BNB. Now something has happened about it, of course. But yeah, Hospitable is so it's my company, but now is a company of around 60 people and distributed entirely remote around the world. And yeah, it's a company that was created in 2016 from my bed when I was renting out. So I had my private room, secluded private space, and the rest of my flat was basically being used by my then absolutely 100% Airbnb guest.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I've been an Airbnb host for quite some time, for 2 years. I realized the stress of the early check-ins, late checkouts, turnovers, the accumulation of reservations, the drain also, and a bit of the hosting fatigue. I was doing everything myself. So the cleaning, the experience. I cook them breakfast every time. I offer them a beer tasting experience. I'm in Belgium, in Brussels, so basically all the tourists that come here better have a taste of one of the best products. I would not like chocolates every other 2 days, so beer. Okay, let's try and settle for one. um, and yeah, and that's how the idea of Hospitable came up.
And
This
what
was
year was
yeah,
that in?
that was in I started hosting in 2014,
Okay.
and I stopped to focus entirely on Hospitable in 2016. And so when I was the only reason why I stopped hosting is basically that I was basically having a schedule that was completely disconnected from what is totally allowed in Europe. So coding at night, in particular, screaming quite a bit when there were bugs, of course. And so I thought it was not exactly the most pleasant experience to have me as a host. And so yeah, I decided to go all in on Hospitable. Um,
Wow. Okay. So you've got development experience.
Yeah, that would be a surprise to everyone. That was definitely one to my parents whenever I said, "Yeah, I'm going to create my startup and all." I've been coding actually since I was 13, but actually my background is I'm a lawyer by training, and
Ah,
that's something that always kind of fascinates me around this particular industry on short-term rentals. There are very few degrees for short-term rentals, if there is any. I just don't want to say no, never, but there's not that many ways to get into the industry. Everybody has started somewhere else, and they land on the short-term rental for some other things. So you have the real estate investors, you have the some people that just landed some property that they need to make it work for them. You have the digital nomads that still have a flat somewhere, a house somewhere,
yeah.
that are renting it out, and so plenty of people with totally completely diverse backgrounds, which I think particularly enrich the industry that we're in.
Yeah. So, look, if you're okay, I want to kind of get into sort of a bit of the nitty gritty because I really want to talk
Mhm.
about use your brain to talk about technology. There's quite a few founders that of property management software that might not have come from a sort of a tech background, and one of the things that really strikes me about what you guys do is the fact that you are trying to push the envelope in terms of innovation. Now, we're not here to sell the technology, we're here to give everybody ideas as to how they can use that technology in their business and how the landscape might change over the next few years and how people can prepare
Mhm.
themselves. Now, when you started building this tool and this software, of course, at the time there would have been some other solutions out there. Maybe not as many that were short-term rental focused, but I know that out of the states there were already quite a few companies that were doing or building
Mhm.
different solutions and software. But you had decided to maybe build it yourself or to look at it. Can you run me through sort of a bit of that mindset?
Yeah, I have to tell you, I was probably very clueless and naive when I started Hospitable. I realized that I'm really a nut duck there, but I didn't do that much of research. I didn't realize that there were actually property management businesses that existed that were managing
Mm,
a large portfolio of companies. I went into this like I need to solve a problem of my own. And that problem of my own was really that I wanted to have my little experience with my guest uninterrupted, where I can give them undivided attention. And that's something that really is probably resonating with a lot of hosts. Is you will get that notification on your mobile phone. You have the pressure of responding fast, and this kind of you can if you're a serious host, you want to answer or at least read the message as fast as you want to be as fast as you can to be able to prioritize whether that makes
mm,
sense to respond now or not. I was really solving my own problem in the way that I saw fit, and I'm a really lazy person, the type of lazy that don't mind probably working 40 80 hours just basically to get a problem to get one problem solved and then basically get it out of the way so that I don't have to do it ever again.
yeah.
One other thing on that I want to say on the technology, I repeat to every engineer that just gets started, and it's probably a narrative violation, but technology is absolutely worthless and useless. We are not really there to push technology down the throat of users or hosts of any kind. That's not exactly the way you would be able to make it successful. You start by the customer, you start by the problem, and you start by how then you look at how technology can help solve those problems. Mine was really the fact that I hated to repeat myself. This is basically my number one pet peeve. I would love to change it. I would love to have more patience, but this is now a perk of my job:
Yeah.
is that impatience is very much part of the psychological profile. The that's what I wanted to go against. And so that meant using every technology available at the time to be able to answer the guest questions, to personalize the messages in a way that I would not have been able to because there would have been simply too much work involved, too much frustration, too much fatigue. resulting in the end in me likely shutting my Airbnb down altogether, because there was actually no way to make that a rewarding experience for myself. It would have been rewarding through the connections, but basically there is that drag and friction factor on the guest communication side. That was my experience with Hospitable and the problem I wanted to solve.
Yeah, wow. So really thinking about that problem, and then obviously as you start to grow the company, you start to see that there's lots of different problems that you can go and tackle. So um, tell me a bit about sort of that journey of tackling problems, and then how do you really identify which ones are the most serious problems that we do need to tackle and we need to double down on to create solutions for?
Yeah, I think so. There is really a difference. There are many differences, I believe, about Hospitable and other software companies. But then again, I'm literally the guy that's gonna
Sure.
tell you that. But there are really two major differences historically about Hospitable in the way we see things and how we can basically support the industry. The first one is who we want to be working with. And coming from my experience, coming from what is relatable also to the team as we grew, that's really going to be for the self-managers. That is for people who are running their operation themselves and are not basically are not going to be are going to be professional in their mindset, but not necessarily in the availability of time. They will have a job elsewhere. And that means they will have constraints on running their operations. They want to pour their heart into it, but there is simply a lot of things. They have their family, they have their job, and then there is this Airbnb operation that they need to be running. And the other part that has been differentiating us really from the start, from 2016, when really the first version was launched, is really having these specialties, or we want to do thing, which is to leverage AI technology in particular. Now, AI meant something in 2016, doesn't mean the same thing at all in 2024.
Sure.
And that was something that we perceived would be, for example, a great way to work for everyone on a pain point that's quite universal. That is a problem for the scalability for maybe some property managers if they want to, but definitely can provide the highest benefit to the self-managers in that they are now able to automate their short-term rental operations without sacrificing the guest experience and improving it, because they are going to be able to personalize the message likely more so than not. What it meant is that we're probably we discriminate a lot in the number of problems that we want to be solving. We are far more T-shaped in a way. We go a lot deeper on some problems than another alternative would be able to do, because based on many factors, they need to solve well enough a large number of problems. And we took a completely different approach, which is nope, we're going to solve one problem really, really, really well, and then we're going to expand to another problem. What it means is that we're likely, laggard in many features, in many ways of what we can do to our product, where there is definitely significant gaps compared with an alternative. But the value that we provide for each of the problems that we're solving is orders of magnitude, 1 or 2 orders of magnitude greater than what you could find on any other alternative. So that really, everything about guest experience is something that we kept on investing for 5 years. Now there's been a lot of focus in recent years around direct bookings. So I know that's really something you're passionate about.
Sure.
But for example, the challenge here was really, how can we bring direct bookings realistically and sustainably so to a host with 1 or 2 properties, where there is no risk or skills expected about payment, chargebacks, payment processing cost, guest vetting, guest verification, insurance, etc. So building an OTA-like experience without all of the perks or benefits, or without all the risk of going through a normal direct bookings. So that's a lot more intense in terms of execution than what you would have on just connect your Stripe account. Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
that gets you in market faster, but that's not the way that I would be able to explain to my mom basically what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
That you will have 10% of cancellation. You will have a significant number of chargebacks where you're going to need to understand what it means is that you are actually in business and your money will be taken out of your bank account, will be taken out of your next reservation because somebody complained about it. So there is a very significant risk factor brought there. That
Yeah.
that gives you a bit of an idea on how we look at those problems.
Yeah.
It's finding a way to really make it extremely compelling on the value basis, so that the problem is really genuinely being solved.
Yeah.
When we look at direct bookings, we thought it was a matter of publishing a website,
Yeah.
and realizing that as a software provider, this will not push the envelope far enough for this to be actually genuinely adopted, and we would need to be doing something significantly more significant to
Yeah.
make it work for our
Uh,
customer, which is not an alternative and other property management software customers.
Yeah, and it's fascinating the layer of complexity when we talk about websites. Like you said, you're thinking about chargebacks and everything, and then you go, okay, now we need to market this thing. We need to get customers to actually get to the website. So you've got the whole onboarding experience, you've got that transactional experience, then
So,
you need the marketing part of it, and it's a really complex beast on such a micro level where you're talking about a particular audience, but if you don't mind, Pierre, I want to
mhm.
like stick a little bit with that notion of um, finding your niche and understanding your niche. One of the things that a good friend of mine said to me in the past is, "Oh, you know who my audience is, Bart?" And I said, "Who?" And they're like, "They're just like me. They're female. They're this. They're that." They're kind of like an embodiment of themselves, so that in terms of marketing and sales and really being able to understand the product and that fit, it sounds like you are on a similar path. Like you're trying to solve your problems, and then you found a whole audience of people, which is probably the biggest one for if we talk about Airbnb alone. I think they recognize that most of the hosts only have a few properties, and they're doing it more as a maybe an investment or a hobby rather
Mhm.
than as a business. Now, what I want to kind of go to from here is I think we'll come back to overarching technology and principles and what we can expect from the future and where we're going, because I think that's a really important topic. But I also want to talk about learnings that or ability to innovate in a way that other industries might not have. And this is something really I've been thinking about for days. I'm like, "Oh, I really want to ask him. If we talk about um, industries that have been well established, like the hotel space, they've been doing it for a lot longer than short term rentals, or debatably even short term rentals were before hotels. But in terms of scale, hotels have done a lot more. From a technology point of view, everything that I've observed is that it's quite stagnant. That a lot of the innovation that we see in the hotel spaces come off of the back of platforms like Airbnb, and the pandemic, and the kind of needs that we have as an industry. So we need to have locks that can or doors that can open with a code, for example, which might not have been necessary in a hotel or a motel in the past. So my question comes to that. So the innovation side between short-term rentals and the hotel space. Do you have any insights or any thoughts as to why we can move so much faster, or maybe we don't feel that we can move so much faster because they've got so much bigger budgets? What is your feel on the hotels?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. So thank you so much. The, and it's especially looking from our own little products, we saw that there were so many other vendors that have been switching from short-term rentals to hotels, for example, so doing the
Mm,
opposite movement.
sure.
And there is really, I mean, this is a story that is fascinating. I love talking to those vendors about that. Why did you do it? Like you had a niche for you, etc. The thing that I think is constraints. That's fundamentally the difference between an hotel and a short-term rentals. You obviously are gonna be walking and driving a lot if you drive a large number of portfolio of short-term rentals. It's part of the territory. So there is kind of an incentive to minimize that time spent and maximize the return on your investment by investing into technology a little bit early. So that's probably gives an incentive. Considering you have 5 million hosts that have less than 7 properties, you are going to want to have, and 7 properties is quite a big number, you are going to have really a universe of people that are going to want to invest into tech because they have other things to be doing in their lives rather than running the property manager. But for the property manager, that is core to their offering. On the other side, on the hotel, especially those that were able to scale and be successful operationally, there was a very early investment into tech, into 70s, 80s, 90s, progressively so. What it meant is that the investment on R&D on tech were already done on something that would be absolutely atrocious to be looking at today, on legacy tech that may not be the best fit for many integrations. In fact, there were even startups working on an integration between those legacy software so that they could benefit even from other innovations and other new product to improve the experience or even the operations management. And we were that early investments is something that paid off great results for the hotel industry, but blocked it because it was not a continuous investment. It was basically something quite low in terms of priorities and reinvestment, whereas the short-term rental industry arrived. Airbnb is basically 2008, 2010. So that means there was already basically start having those mobile phones, those smartphones everywhere, and that means a complete revolution as well in users' expectations. And that's kind of the pinch movement on the hotel industry. You have legacy tech, which doesn't allow to supplant to increase experience, while customer expectations are changing dramatically and will generationally and promote basically remote online experiences, self-check-in, promoting independence and autonomy rather than a traditional check-in counter where you are not necessarily going to be using that anymore. And so there's been new players that work on the hotel industry just in the same way that short-term industry, but there is also a very wide difference in the adoption. I think obviously hotels without an IT department or an IT backend do not exist anymore. Thank God. But you have on short-term rentals still plenty of operators that do not use property management software or any software of any kind, that still rely on a pen and paper or Excel spreadsheets to be running their operations.
And that's, I mean, even in the boutique hotel space, and it's one of those things that's completely unseen still. And that's really interesting that you say about that sort of that constraint of legacy tech that then stimulates the innovation. And what's going to be interesting for you guys as well is I think what would you say, 2016, so a couple more years and you'll be 10 years old, and it'll be interesting to see which parts you have to go and rebuild and whether you do it or not. But that moving also from one technology to another is really hard, right? Because you've spent so much time and so much effort getting things to where they are and your systems and your processes, and to go and reinvent the whole thing, sometimes you can get it wrong, right? And that's kind of your IP. You've built that whole solution to get to where it is, and then if you start to change it, it's an absolute disaster, an absolute nightmare. So I found it really heartening, especially Pierre. I've been doing this podcast for 4 or 5 years now, for quite a while, and actually seeing technology move from one to the other, it's just fascinating. From like even like the guidebooks that we have right now, and like I feel that they're on the cusp of becoming a lot more useful. Like they're good, they're useful, they work, but not everyone's using them. I would argue that a very low percentage of guests would interact with a digital guidebook in terms of overall booking volume. But I can see that's a space which is, we're going to figure it out. Then we'll flick it back to the hotels once we've figured it out, like with the locks in the past.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the reasons why there have been quite a few vendors that started on short-term rentals because of the velocity of adoption. And then once they reach a certain scale, start pivoting away to hotels up to a point where they, for example, do not want to service short-term rentals because it means such a small part. I find it
Mm.
interesting that those businesses are all VC funded and they announce those pivots typically a year after announcing new funds. Uh, uh, but yeah, to be fair, I've talked to an operator that was in a noise monitoring space, and they basically just like, yeah, there are a lot of constraints basically about supporting short-term rental customers. When you are talking to Intel, you're talking to an IT department. There is an implementation practice and procedure that now has been ironed out for the past few years because they are investing into their R&D. They see that hotels are seeing that as a way to differentiate and improve their experience overall. So there is really an extremely professional rollout of technology. Whereas obviously talking to a property manager, well, that may be a net new buy, so that's a net new thing for them. They don't know exactly what's going to happen, and they don't have. There is no expectation for them to be able to support internally their portfolio, and that's kind of the challenge of the property management industry. Is of course it's supposed to be working on the portfolio of clients and getting reservations, and a long tail of issues that come up on a property, and that is simply at one point unrealistic to be meeting all those requirements and solving all those issues internally. So there really is business idea here. So an IT business for property management companies centralizing those operations, because I think it would make property management companies very successful. And that's also on short-term rentals, where there are also genuine conversations about having a CTO as a property management business. It's not about coding your own proprietary infrastructure, but basically making all things integrate to return to get an ROI on your tech investment.
Look, you're preaching to the converted, because to me that's what this business needs to be. Is you need to be operationally very efficient, and I think that even a lot of property management companies, they still underestimate how complex their business is, and they've got holes all over the place they can't plug because they just don't have the resources to plug it because it's expensive to do. Like, you've got a hotel, you can walk through it, right? You can see what's going on. You can't do that with a property management business because it's so complicated, and you've got so many different bits and pieces. So a CTO, and that's coming from like you and I, we both work in tech, right? So we can see and we go, okay, cool, we can solve these problems by having the right solution. But I want to rewind a little bit and just go back to your target audience as well, and the smaller operators as well, because we don't generally do a lot of podcasts on the smaller operator. And if we think about technology, and you just said a lot of people aren't using the tech tools they could potentially use, and there's so many of them, right? So from tools to communicate with our cleaners, it could be WhatsApp, it could be Slack. We might need a CRM system. We might need guest communication. Then we've got accounting, invoicing, ways to pay our taxes. I mean, I was looking I'm actually presenting around Australia at the moment. I brought up Simon Lehman's chart with all the different software solutions just to show everybody like how complex it is. So all good and well for Pierre to say, well, most hosts aren't using a property management system, but if they're not using one, I mean, how do they know which piece of technology they're meant to look at next? Because it is so overwhelming. What would be your kind of advice apart from going, well, yeah, Hospitable is going to solve everything? Well, how do they, yeah, right? How do they get to grips with the solutions that might be of most benefits to them?
I think there's no way around it. You will the most toxic saying for whatever business you're creating is work on anticipating your next problem, especially when you have a small operation. By small, I mean less than 20 people. That basically is not something you should be doing, and that's not the true picture of your day to day. It starts from the pain. It starts from you have a problem to solve, like you're stuck. And especially as you're a founder, you have an escalation of all the bigger problems that could not be resolved by anywhere else. By anyone else, and you always have a fire to be resolving. So the way to look at it is don't look at what's available in the market and where you should be assigning your software dollars. that no one is operating in this fashion. Start from get a piece of paper and a pen and list what are the problems and the most painful points that you are experiencing. um, you mentioned there is really an overwhelming offering. What I find the problem in the industry in particular is really that most of those talk to property managers. They have a greater scale, which means they have a greater pain point, but they also are compressed on the cost. For example, they only get a certain amount out of each reservation. Property owners, self-managers have probably a slightly more latitude, but they also experience fewer pain points as they get started. You have a genuine question is basically, if I have one property, should I use software to do so? That depends on everyone and tolerance to pain. I have a very low threshold. I'm literally a guy that would feel bad about sending the same copied and pasted message to a guest. I feel bad because shit, there should have been something to send it for me, and I feel bad because I wish I would have more time or more energy or more passion maybe for personalizing that message and making it a bit more special for the guest. That is my pain point, but it may be very different for anyone else. And that's what I want to go back to basically on the abundance of tools available is those tools are meant to solve problems for a specific segment, for a specific persona. And when you look at basically the self-managers, the property owners, the people that are running their own operation, that may even be doing the cleaning themselves like I've been doing, um, there is not an all-in-one for those people. And all-in-one is something that is being dropped quite a few times in the industry. All-in-one means very different things to very different people. You talk about accounting. A property owner with an LLC will have an accountant to run that. And this is basically a fixed cost, more or less, in the business. You would not look into softwares to do that because you are already having a service provider for it. So bringing accounting within the realm of an all-in-one solution for property owner is something we look at, but that's definitely not a priority because this is not really. We are not probably coming from us. We are not yet very familiar with the depth of the problem and the pain point that basically what it means in terms of pain point to a property owner.
You're blowing my mind. You're blowing my mind. I just what I love about it is you've been really able to focus on that whole thing. This is where you started off the episode was I'm just looking at problems, but just trying to fix those problems, and you always bring it back to what are those particular problems for those particular people, and everyone will figure out what they are for themselves. So if we are looking at it though, Pierre, and we go, okay, I identify that maybe I've got these problems, or maybe these frustrations that the ones that are most frustrating to me, right? Now I know that I've got a problem, but how do I go and I find that particular solution? Who do I lean on? We've got my networks. I can go on YouTube. I can go online. Um, I've got my own methodology, but I'd love to hear, like, even for you guys. I mean, two questions. One, how do you source your own tech and solutions for your business? But also, what would you recommend for a smaller property host?
Yeah, that's a great question. To give you an idea how probably completely disconnected we are as a software business from a short-term rental operation, we pay for more software than we have people in the team. I think last time I counted, we were paying for 164 software as a service products for a team of 60. So that might sound incredibly overwhelming, but the reality is that it's about gaining productivity, and we come from a world of constraints just the same. So there is definitely far more investment into tech because we, for example, don't invest into an office. So if you want to have people chatting with each other, sure, you're gonna have free solutions, but those are not going to be all collaborative to do work. For example, um, I think from an operator perspective, the best way I would use uh, the what's the expression? The wisdom of crowds.
Mm.
um, And honestly, I find this is basically what organically people are doing anyway. You have an overwhelming amount of vendors, and they are. If you want to review and assess every single one of them, this is really going to be taking a major piece of your time. But what I would do is really ask for advice, and that's basically what we see on Facebook groups, for example, for between Airbnb hosts is basically what software are you using. There may be absolutely always an overwhelming amount of recommendation. What I'm really would recommend is make it specific to your case. You're gonna have software for solving a specific pain points, and you need to express what is your pain. You have a certain scale, and there is basically a certain certain product environment that will go into that. What is particularly interesting in the vendor space for short-term rentals is that there really is a move to service the self-managers. Products that I thought were really on the enterprise level, like 200 properties, are now starting to get into the self-manager segment, which means that there is going to be great competition. Typically, that results in great choice, maybe savings down the road. Although I wouldn't get my hopes up. And definitely more more pain in choosing a vendor.
Yeah.
What I would recommend as well is basically, if you're going to be, that's something that you said as well about, is that it takes time to switch software. It's a pain because during that time you all of a sudden are looking more at your screen on connecting the dots and doing the work for the software that you may have paid for, than actually doing your work, which is running your operation. I would want to make sure that the vendor has customers that fit my profile. You don't want to be the odd duck because there is on the back end, there is no SOP to be supporting you. There is no way that basically your problems are going to be perceived as something valuable to invest more resources in. Typically, that's the case for feature request.
Yeah.
If you are working with an accountant in the space that, for example, is working for big operators, they may have an integration with Sage, they may have an integration with NetSuite. They probably would not care about Stesa, another accounting software that is free and really focused for small operations. Nothing. Nobody's wrong on that. You just basically are in the wrong room with the wrong person, and you need to switch the room altogether. I want to check other retention, how many customers, and those are questions that salespeople are actually qualified to be answering because they should be absolutely aware of it. So why are people leaving your product? What is the satisfaction level? What's the breakdown of people who actually would be happy with the current product and the direction? So something a bit more psychological, but it still matters. And the salespeople do know about it because they get access to the same dashboard, to the same metrics on the business. And the last point, who the hell owns that business? Because this changes and switches incentive massively. In our universe, there is a lot, and that's great for them. And maybe Hospitable is going to be one of those one day. So I cannot trash talk this particular thing, but there is a difference in a business that basically is funded by sales from its customers in the term of attention that it has to give to customers, and a company that has a runway of 150 years. And do not, where basically the only function that really matters in the business is the finance function, and they make probably more money from interest on their investments than they make on sales from customers. You can perceive that this is a game of incentives, and there is really a different approach on how those business could be run in each way. And I think that that's a factor that people are always pushing out negatively, but I think that still yields significant relevance if you want to partner with a vendor for a long time. Also, never, from my experience, and that's one bit for my own software experience, never buy with a commit for a year, for etc. upfront without you having seen the software, because there is such this. And
I did that recently, Pierre. I bought something and I was like, "Oh my god!" I thought I was going for a month, and I was in the wrong part of the checkout process, and then $4,000 later, I'm like, oh my god, this is terrible. So no, I don't disagree, but it's interesting though, because as well, when we think about property management software, and I know I'm interrupting, so I do apologize.
No problem.
When we think about property management, it's not, you can't really trial it, right? Like if you're one property, you probably could, but if you've got a bigger business, it's very hard to actually do that. But I am going to continue with that interruption a little bit because we are running out of time, and I want to be mindful of those final questions that I can actually ask you. With that part about the checking your software and stuff, if you don't mind, I want to add to that I think I don't mind the idea of Facebook groups, but I also I'm a little bit more pessimistic about it than you may have put across, because there's a lot of misinformation as well, and there's a lot of people that might be better at sitting there on social media all day long promoting their business, and then there's actually a lot of people that aren't great at what they do. So tenure, longevity, really getting to connect with the owner. But also, I really like two things. One is being able to talk to someone face to face and get that review from them, or give them a call and say, hey, what do you really think about it? This online stuff, it's a little bit worse. If I call someone up, then I'm really getting is it actually going to be suitable for me? And the other thing that I found recently is the companies that are investing in having their teams out on the ground that aren't just salespeople. Like you go to VRMA and there's companies that bring like 20 people from their team, from accounts all the way up and down. And those companies I find fascinating, because it's like, actually, these are the real people that you're going to be working with. They're empowering your business and doing everything around that. So those are kind of, it follows on your point as well, not only the founder and who's leading it, but also what do those teams actually look like? And is it just at the conferences, is it just a bunch of salespeople, or if they brought the whole team for an experience to sort of wrap it up? So that sort of thing. I'll let you add anything you want to that
So,
before I ask
sorry
my
about.
final questions. No, that's fine.
Sorry
Yeah.
about. Are you saying that events and conferences are a great way to meet vendors?
Oh,
That's funny, but you have really.
yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
We
I'll always,
always
I'll always
bring.
weave strive back in one way or another.
Yeah, but that's true. You will meet. We for where every event that we go, there is a product person, there's a support person, there is definitely a salesperson to demo what our product is doing. But that's a way for us to have great conversation with existing customers, far more than reselling a software.
Okay, my last quick fire question is around AI. I just want to go straight for the jugulars, so to speak, and I really want to get your thoughts on, because we've got AI, it's in everything that we do. Yes, it's going to be one of the most important innovations, all that kind of stuff we know. Are you seeing something like how quickly do you think this is going to go in terms of absolutely changing everything to a point where we can't go now? Let me phrase it a bit better. We know that a mobile phone, right, has changed everything, but just because the iPhone came out, it took a while before now it's everywhere. AI is argue the same sort of thing, but it's going to take a moment before even Hospitable catches up to really embed it in such a way. Even if the AI technology isn't quite there yet in terms of what ChatGPT are doing or OpenAI. So where do you think that moment of technology is going to kind of smash it, and then where everything's changed?
Yeah, there's a good parallel that you make between the smartphone and AI. Even back in the day when the iPhone came out, even there was definitely this adoption curve. I remember this was basically the phone I wanted to get. It was a desirable thing to have. The problems we have now with AI is that it exists, but I don't think we're quite there yet in terms of desirability. It improves things, but you're not using it all the time. It is not your go-to. You don't have an addiction to AI, just in the same way that you have an addiction to your smartphone and all the usage that came about it. So it's like the first iPhone. It's you look at it, it looks more like a rock now than a smart rock, sure, but there's been a massive improvement in technology. The challenge with AI is making it useful. and it takes a hell of a lot of iterations and understanding of what is the actual problem we're trying to solve. I'm sorry, I'm going back onto the problem, but what is the problem you're actually trying to solve? And the thing is, you can make it about a massive piece, or you can make it about a narrow piece. We're more of the school of thought of narrow pieces summed together, rather than just wait for the big thing altogether. So yeah, it's going to change. The technology can do a lot of things. It needs a lot of control, it needs a lot of validation. There's a lot of practice that are basically being built right now that are the foundation of whatever is coming next. As to the timing, slowly, then all at once. There was a phase of hype last year, and coming to the realization that AI will not solve all mankind's problem yet. That's fine. Then you have into a depression phase. That is during the depression phase that things that are important are being built. Because now you come to a list of all the problems. Sorry for that. You come to a list of what it takes to be improved, to have something that's going to be valuable. I think from an operator's perspective, that represents a great equalizer. You may have significant operators that have invested a lot into R&D, and if they don't ride that wave, it's basically irrelevant. It's the story of hotel drowning in legacy tech in the 2010s. It's basically going to allow the players that are investing into that part to be able to reap the benefits and basically take market share at a level of efficiency that I believe we've not seen before in history. But that's not about the opportunity as much as what it allows you to fix is our short-term rental businesses. I've got a bit of turnover, it takes a bit of training. You always have a challenge on the people that you're working with. With an AI, you are progressively able to optimize that part of your business altogether. So we're very excited about something that we realize that there are some things over there that we didn't do right. Simply we didn't see enough adoption, and there are a few things that we're starting to do. There was a comment on the Hospitable Host Facebook group that basically were on our Facebook group with customers saying that now they're looking to have basically our improved message function across their email application, across their text messages, because we are getting to a point where it's actually getting useful and looked at. So that's the thing about tech desirability is that when it's absent, you're looking for it. That's what happens with my smartphone. I can spend a reduced amount of time looking for my smartphone if I don't have it in front of me. And we need to be reaching that same point around AI. It's going to come a lot faster than we can anticipate. It's not a matter of years from what we're seeing, and the velocity of development on the foundation layer, so on everything around the models for consumptions, but also that the usage of it. And there are plenty of soft tech boilerplate that needs to be built that's now really improving, that allows us to be building an experience for a guest, for us, for a user of a product that's far more compelling than it could have been 3 months earlier.
I feel ready for another. We should start again and just go into this topic for another half an hour, an hour, Pierre. Like I couldn't agree with you more.
Face to face.
Yeah,
Shouldn't
that's
be
right.
Making one face to face.
You know where you're coming next, right? After VRMA, I'm going to be pushing until you get over here to Australia, so that we can show you around, and you can try some of our fantastic beers as well, which you'll really enjoy. Pierre, what a nice way to get to the end of the episode. I really appreciate the time that you've put into coming on, sharing your insights, and it's absolutely clear that to me, you've got a really great sense of vision in terms of where you're going and what you're doing. And you clearly want to add value to other people out there, and I think that that's a really great quality. So I've been very excited to work along you guys. Thanks for sponsoring Strive as well. I mean, this episode has got nothing to do with that. This has got to do literally because I wanted to get to talk to you. So the privilege is all mine. Look, Pierre, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you or Hospitable, or to engage with what you guys do?
Yeah, sure. If you want to reach out to me, you can send me an email at pc@hospitable.com. I hope I said it right. Hospitable is a very difficult name to be saying when you're French. So the other way to get maybe more acquainted with Hospitable as a product and as a business is realizing what we're working on. We're having bi-weekly town halls. You can check them out on YouTube. We're having live events with our product teams, sometimes with myself having something interesting to say. And we also take questions from customers. That's a great way for you to assess what are the pain points, what are the issues, what are the opportunities of working with a product like Hospitable. If you want to sign up and experience it for yourself, we're having a great offer with Bart and the Accommodation Show. And yeah, we offer 25% off for 3 months on whichever plans are available. And you can check it out on hospitable.com/accommodation show.
Oh, amazing. So, folks, the link will be in the show notes below, so you can pick it up there. If you're listening to it, you can rewind and re-listen to it again, or just pick up the notes there. Now, if you are watching on YouTube, make sure you give us a like and a subscribe. Roughly around about 90% of you are watching, but you haven't pressed the button below, so I don't know why. Just give it a little press, and what that means is you're going to get notifications when amazing episodes come out, and it will enable me to get more guests like Pierre onto the show. If you're listening on the podcast, make sure you give us 5 stars as well. That does make a huge difference. You wouldn't even know. Pierre, thank you so much. Have a great day today, and I hope to speak to you really soon.
Thank you, Bart. Thank you for a great question. Have a fantastic time.
Thank you. Take care.